So rewilding has really picked up over the past couple of decades. It's something of a buzzword that encapsulates a few definitions, and I want to get into those definitions and what they mean and how it can impact your life and, well, all life. Because in essence, rewilding holds the answers to many of the problems that we face today as a species, but also as individuals. And in this video, we're going to understand these various meanings and how that if we embrace it just a little bit, it can make all of our lives better. Alright, so what is rewilding? The first way of understanding rewilding, and probably the way that you associate it, is a form of land management. It's taking an area, say an intensively managed agricultural field, and it's putting a halt to all of the ploughing, the spraying of pesticides, and the growing of a singular plant species. And instead, you allow the land to do its own thing, its natural thing. Or indeed, you encourage the plant species that would have grown there if it weren't for the years of the alternative management. You see, a key thing to understand is that rewilding the land can both be passive and active forms of management. An example of passive land management when it comes to rewilding is, say if you just purchased a farm and you say, I want to rewild this farm. You're maybe going to take down the fences and gates and things, but for the most part, you're just going to leave it to do its thing. You're going to let Mother Nature take its course. Now this approach is fundamentally passive. You are indeed managing the land by doing absolutely nothing. And it's usually the first steps that are taken with any rewilding project. It's typically a time of monitoring and understanding a patch of land and its context within the wider landscape. What's using it, what's growing there, what's happening. So take your garden for example. A very simple way to encourage wildlife is to not mow the lawn. It's to not prune the trees of dead wood. It's to leave that dead rabbit or dead bird in situ for all the little bugs and beasties to come and eat down, or maybe even a fox is going to come around and eat it. It's all about just leaving things as they are and stepping back and letting nature take the lead. But on the other hand, you have active rewilding management. Now this would be the planting of trees or potentially the resculpting of a peat bog in order for it to retain more water, or the really big one which people associate with rewilding, which is species reintroductions. And this is for good reason too, because the reintroduction of a wolf or a lynx or a bear or a bison or whatever the animal is going to get people's attention. But in reality, this active form of rewilding, of reintroducing a species, is the last step. It's the tip of the rewilding pyramid. Now this is something which I've come up with myself. I haven't taken this directly from a textbook, although there may be some other similar styles of thought. But this should hopefully give you an understanding of how I think about the term rewilding. So here we have a pyramid with 3 levels. The top 2 levels are the forms of management which we've already discussed. So you have active and you have passive. So active being like the reintroduction of a species, or like the reforming of a peat bog or planting trees. And then passive being where you do absolutely nothing. Maybe there's some small interventions to begin with, but for the most part, you're doing nothing. But then you have this base level, which I like to call human rewilding. Now this is a definition of rewilding which I think is the most valuable, and it's at the bottom because it underpins the other 2, and I'll tell you for why. But first, what does it mean, human rewilding? What does it mean to rewild a human? Now, it doesn't necessarily mean taking all your clothes off and moving to Alaska and living off berries and trying to hunt salmon with your bare hands, hoping that a bear doesn't attack you. Now, if you want to do this, I will respect you. That is one way of living a wilder life. But fundamentally, we have to appreciate that humans, although we are part of this web of life, we are another species. We are different, and it's because of our abilities to alter our environment, to ask questions and find answers to them. We've pulled away from nature, with many of our civilizations completely disassociated or disinterested in nature. The rewilding of a human is all about welcoming back that connection with nature. To see ourselves as not only being part of the web of life, but it's also having empathy and understanding for all living things. And also, that whether if we like it or not, we are the ones that make the decisions here on Earth. It's our actions that decide what happens. So for really simple educational purposes, I want you to imagine a scale of wilder and less wild. To move more towards the wilder end of the scale, you have to be more understanding, you have to be more empathetic of all living things. Understanding that we are connected to nature, and the impacts and the decisions that we make now will ultimately come back and affect us. It's a feeling as much as anything. It's a sense of knowing your place and the impact that you can have wherever you'll find yourself, whether it be Alaska or London. And it's at the bottom of this pyramid. It underpins these 2 forms of land management Because how can we possibly rewild the land when we haven't even started with rewilding ourselves? And this will be the benefit to all life, because a stronger, more resilient ecosystem that can be more tolerant to changes in climate, an ecosystem that can sustain more life, better air, better water, better food, better ways to spend our time, honestly getting out in nature. People say it, forest bathing, all of these good things, spending time in nature is good for the soul. And the more better connected, stronger, wilder, greener places that we have, the more opportunities people will have to get out into nature and experience these benefits. And active forms of management, such as the links for introduction, how this can make millions through ecotourism. I made videos on this, so you can check them out. I'll link them all in the description. So I think something useful that you can take away from this video is to have this very black and white understanding of living a wilder life and a less wild life. Asking yourself the question, are the decisions that I'm making leading to a wild life or a not wild life? And I think you only get answers when you start asking questions, and you only start asking questions when you become a bit more curious. And if you are more curious and you want to gain access to exclusive content, you can join the community over on Patreon, or you can get your hands on a sustainably made t-shirt. It says Curious About Nature on the back. This is my favorite one, the grey and the white. And please satisfy the YouTube algorithm by liking, commenting, sharing, and watching the video that is on the screen now. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Live curious.